Happy New Year. Happy New Year, every single guy.
Not girl.
Not good.
Happy New Year, everybody.
We're back in full force. I'm Steve.
I'm Ernie.
Happy New Year. Welcome to the Radio Toons podcast. Sorry about that intro. That was weird. But it is a new year. A new year is upon us. People are making resolutions and stuff like that. I don't really have any. I continue to be the same person every single year, so...
Slight improvements, I think. Slight improvements
sure.
every year.
But yeah, we just got back from our tiny time off from YouTube, and it was pretty nice.
Yep.
I think me and you both played and watched our fair share of movies.
Yep.
And games and stuff. You actually just saw Jumanji today. Which I thought looked really bad, but according to Rotten Tomatoes and the people I've talked to, they've said it's actually kind of funny. So
actually, I believe that the Rotten Tomatoes critic score is low. Is like not low like 50s and 60s. It's actually like 70, 80.
Okay.
But the audience score is really high. It's like in the 90s. And I can see why.
Okay, yeah. Okay. No, I mean, yeah, people like The Rock, you know? Like,
no, it's true that people
like
The Rock.
Jack Black.
Yeah.
Kevin Hart. It's got all the likable dudes in it, you know? Like,
yeah, it definitely does. But I will...
well, let me just hear what you think of it, like your little opinion on it real fast, because I haven't seen it.
We literally... like
I haven't seen it. You're the one that's seen it.
So Cindy and I literally watched it, 3 hours ago?
Okay.
Just got out of it, so this is, fresh in my mind.
You're still on the movie buzz. You still have the movie buzz.
I still have it, because we had some popcorn and then we had Korean barbecue after.
Cool.
So I'm real happy. Really good movie.
Okay.
Right? Very dumb as in a premise. It's like this game just made everything bananas, right?
Right.
So I really liked it. It was really funny. But my problem with it, and I told Cindy this too, my wife, the parts in reality kind of suck.
Okay.
Once they get into the game, the movie's great.
I have a question for you. Did it need to be called Jumanji?
Yeah, I actually did.
It did need to be called...
Because I'm trying not to spoil anything for anybody, but there is a nod to the original Jumanji in it. And it is the same game board.
Okay.
But,
right.
it's
because it's in this game, in this movie, it's a video game, right?
Right.
That's why I was like, why couldn't they just call it something like Zathura? Zathura is essentially Jumanji, but it's not like...
Well, because if you remember from the old movie, it was kind of buried. So it's been generations. Jumanji keeps evolving. So just to kind of set up the premise, in the original Jumanji... it's like the 60s when they find it, and Alan Parrish gets pulled into Jumanji.
Okay.
And then the kids find it in 90-something, right? Yeah. Something like that. So that's kind of where this takes place, because literally you start the movie right where somebody finds Jumanji, in the sand of a beach.
Oh, crazy. Okay.
Yeah. So it's like it takes off right from there.
That's cool.
So... the way they play it, and you could tell if you've ever watched the trailer, it's a video game in this one.
Right. I saw the trailer and I wanted to gouge my eyes out. I really, it could just be a case of the editing in trailers too.
Well, here's one thing that I hate about trailers, and one thing that kind of is good about this movie. Right. Mm-hmm. One bad thing about trailers is they give you a great joke in the trailer. And then you find out that's the best part of the movie. Okay. This one is the opposite. Those jokes in the trailer are the worst part of them. They're the kind of the groaner jokes in the movie.
That's what I'm saying. So that's what they show off.
Yeah, that's what they show off. They're way better jokes actually in the movie.
Okay. All right.
And here's another thing I hate in other movies. I hate when they meet somebody and then a person's all like, this is what you have to do, blah, 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 blah. There's a lot of exposition without any natural feel. Right. But within the way that they discover the rules of the game feel very natural. Okay. So it doesn't feel like somebody knows everything. Well, that's what it's like, hey, blah, 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 hey, Jumanji.
That's what I'm saying, because the trailer did a real bad job of that, because in the trailer they're straight up I think we are the characters that we chose in the game or whatever. Yeah, and I'm like, okay, you couldn't just see that. You had to have them tell the audience that basically, whatever.
But it's like they're each in the trailer shows that each player has a power. It's not like they're it's I don't know how to explain it. It doesn't come out naturally in them. They kind of have to discover the power, even though they're told their power. They kind of have to discover it through the game, quote unquote.
Okay.
And because I liked it too, because it felt like it builds more on the lore of Jumanji as a board game. Mm-hmm. Because it's like, okay, it's alive. That's how it calls to people, with the drums.
Okay.
So it would make sense that it would adapt to entice people.
You're saying so it made itself into a video game somehow?
To entice people.
Oh, okay.
Because,
I guess. It's like Venom. It's just like a symbiote. It's
like a symbiote because remember, the way it called Alan, the original guy, which was played by Robin Williams, is that it did the drum beat and it called him.
I see.
And around that time, it was like, oh, look, adventure and jungles and blah, blah, blah. So that's what drew him in.
Would you say that it's better than the original?
I think I'd have to watch the original again to really gauge it.
Okay.
Because that movie is Robin Williams.
Right.
And it shares a lot of the elements, as in, when the cool part about that movie is when Alan rediscovers he's a boy inside a man's body, so he like tries to shave, and you remember he's like, I don't know how to drive, my dad never taught me.
Okay, yeah,
those parts. So those parts are played down in Jumanji because he still like grew into being a man.
Right.
So he doesn't know how to be a man here, but he knows how to be a man in the jungle. In this movie, what they do is when they turn into their avatars, they're still those people.
Right. Like Jack Black is a girl.
Is a girl, right? So, and like I said, the worst jokes are in the trailer. There's really good jokes in the actual movie. Like The Rock being this skinny little dude, he plays it really well.
Okay.
Like, I know The Rock is like this, freaking like big tough guy, blah, blah, blah. Seeing him play the scared boy is not it's not slapsticky. He's not like going all the time or anything like that. He's genuinely like, I don't know, he acts more natural.
Okay.
So it's not we're gonna get it on Blu-ray. You're gonna watch it and you're gonna be like, oh man, it was really kind of fun.
Yeah. Sure. We'll see if that happens or not. I also saw a movie this weekend. I saw Downsizing.
You saw that?
Yeah, I saw that movie.
That's the one where Matt Damon like shrinks.
Yeah, so this is definitely a movie where the premise of the movie is way more interesting than the actual movie itself. Because by the end of the movie, I was like,
that's been getting a lot of praise too.
It hasn't actually. It has really bad scores on Rotten Tomatoes. Audience and critic scores. It's gotten really bad reviews.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow! I guess I really.
Who told you it was good?
These trailers have been like, I guess.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The trailers, it's like, okay, the concept is cool, but the movie itself is very like. The whole time I was asking myself, like, how is this movie going to end? How is this movie going to end? There's no conflict. How is the movie going to end? And I think honestly, like if there was a few things changed here and there, I'm not going to spoil anything, but it might as well have been like an Adam Sandler film.
Really?
Yeah, the comedy was really raunchy, and like there was a lot of parts that were very like it was almost like tone deaf. Like it would be a really serious, sad scene, and then it would have like some nasty like joke. Not that I'm against raunchy humor, but it's like when it's misplaced like that.
Yeah,
it tends to be a little more like shocking in a bad way, if that makes any sense.
The way I picture it in my head is like you brushing your teeth and then you drink some orange juice.
Sure.
It's just like either one of those can be fine on their own, but once you put them together, they're just like
it just doesn't mix well. And
yeah,
the parts that like they use to remind you that they're small, quote unquote, are a bit like there's not enough of it basically. So the end of the movie basically plays out like the end of a fucking movie. It's not like it's anything special because they're small, But, whatever. It's just like a fucking forgettable movie that you watch. If it's on TV, you happen to catch it. It's one of those.
Yeah, well.
But I personally wouldn't recommend it or say, like, go check it out.
Matt Damon's not enough to save that movie, huh?
He actually does a really good job in it, I think. He actually does a really good job in it. But, yeah, there's just some... It is just such a strange movie, like I said, as far as, like... you think you're supposed to be watching like a serious movie for a while, and then it'll throw in like a herpes joke or something, and I'm like,
wow,
like
that
this is
blew, huh?
weird. That's why I said it has like that Adam Sandler vibe, because you know how like Adam Sandler movies will sometimes have like a serious or like somber tone, and then all of a sudden it's like, you know, some guy's taint or something, and like
Ugh.
that. Those are like what new Adam Sandler movies are like.
Yeah.
You know, like
They're just like all this stuff all together. It doesn't matter. It's like whatever Adam thinks is funny that moment is what gets put in.
exactly.
You know?
That's exactly how it is. But yeah, so those are just a couple of movies we watched. We did watch a big one that everyone's been talking about, but we don't want to talk about that this week because we feel like it's a bit, oversaturated as far as like people talking about it.
You think?
Yeah, so let's just move on from that one.
We did play a lot of games too.
We did play a
God.
lot of. I played a fucking shitload of games. But you were telling me that you got PUBG because they finally put it on a console.
Yeah. Okay. So I got. I don't know what the kids. Some people are calling it PUBG.
Everyone's calling it PUBG, Ernie.
All right. Never mind.
what?
I don't know. Me and my friends would just call it PUBG.
But
anyway,
I call it PUBG. Everyone calls it something different.
We had been playing before we started playing that. We were playing Fortnite.
Right. Those games are pretty similar as far as
they could be the same game.
Okay.
Okay, but the way we were gonna start this discussion beforehand, and we're just like, well, let's start it now. Pub would be like if you wanted to play a serious hardcore version of this, 100 PV player versus player game. There's a huge map, vehicles, armor. There's different levels of armor. It's so like diverse, and to get.
You're talking about PUBG?
Yeah, I'm talking about PUBG.
Yeah, people know what PUBG
is.
is.
Yeah. So it's really like intense, and it's so intense that like wearing shoes in a certain area can give you a benefit because nobody can hear your footsteps. That kind of thing.
So Fortnite's just the free version, basically.
Fortnite is just a boiled down version of that. So the map is, I would say, at least 50% smaller. Okay. Right? Things are way more streamlined. Like in PUBG, you have to look down, look at the level of the gun, bring it on, make sure that each attachment that you want on it, and blah blah blah. This is just like, oh, this assault rifle is green, right? And it pops up like right in front of you.
Oh, so
you can just run in and grab it. But different levels are represented by colors. So like the gold weapons are the best, so they come out, and they stand out. Really easy to just pop on those weapons, switch around.
So it looks aesthetically, it looks better than.
It's just more streamlined. Like the characters are. Think about it more like when you go from Counter-Strike, something like Counter-Strike, to Team Fortress 1 to Team Fortress 2. Like that style change.
Okay.
Everything's just more streamlined. So everything is like if you were going to look at Team Fortress and you're like, which one's the medic? The medic just has a band on, right? Mm-hmm. But in this one, the medic has like a full getup and he has a big needle. Like it's just really pronounced and streamlined. So that's kind of what Fortnite is like. Also in Fortnite, the building aspect of it is like really huge. Like you have to get good at that.
Wait, so there's classes in Fortnite then? Because there's not in. I don't believe there is in PUBG.
No, there's no classes in Fortnite. You just play. You're just a regular person. But building has become kind of a secondary skill that you need to.
Yeah, our nephew was playing it, and I was almost thinking like, is this just Minecraft?
No, because like the building part of it is more for defense, and it, depending on how you use it, resources become like a secondary character to the game. So it makes a lot of noise to gather resources, but if somebody's shooting at you, you can build up a wall really quick and build up a wall and either try to escape through it, try to build yourself so you can actually like scale a mountain.
Okay.
Like it becomes this, like I said, secondary, because really all you're doing is killing each other.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't really get into PUBG only because like it really seemed like that kind of flavor of the month kind of game. But I just didn't want to spend like the $40 or whatever it costs to play it. But I do know the story behind it if you care to hear it.
I actually do because again, going from Fortnite to PUBG was actually kind of nice because like I went from a streamlined version to this more intense one. It made PUBG much better for me.
Yeah, so this game was made by a guy named Brendan Green.
Okay.
And the story kind of starts with him getting dumped. he moved to Brazil with his Brazilian girlfriend, and he thought they were in love, and then he was going to get married, and she ended up leaving him. So he was left alone in Brazil, just looking for a way to get back home, basically, like to afford a ticket back home.
Well, like he was no money, just stranded there.
He had enough to live, but he definitely didn't have enough to like move back home. I guess get all his shit and move back home. So he was just saving money, and he was playing video games while he did that. And he really grew fond of this game called Armored 2, and I guess it's like an army game or something.
I've never played that.
But so, he was he said that he was like frustrated with Call of Duty because in Call of Duty lives don't matter. In Call of Duty, you go in, you get shot, you die, and you respawn, and there's no real consequence to dying. But in this game, Armored 2, he was like, I'm gonna make a mod where it's like a battle royale. So if you die, that's it. You get kicked out of the game and whatnot. So he himself started researching like modding and all this stuff, and his tag was Player Unknown. So when the mod came out, it was called Player Unknown's Battle Royale. That's why the game is called that, if you guys didn't know that.
You mean Battleground or Battle Royale?
It's called Battle Royale as the mod.
Oh, okay. So the official game was Battleground.
And people like really loved it. They were like, this is the best mod to ever exist. And as somebody who really likes mod, I think that's really cool because I've always like stumbled upon that in a certain game. They're like, oh, this is a mod you gotta have because this game mode is so fun.
Right, yeah.
And it's cool to hear that. And so this guy was basically like, hey, you know what? I could have a server up for you guys to play it and all that, but the only thing it's going to be running off my computer, so it would literally be up while he was awake. But when he went to sleep, he had to turn off his computer so people couldn't play it, all that shit. But yeah, he was paying for all that stuff out of his own pocket and stuff. And then so eventually he moved back home, he got all his shit together, whatever. And it wasn't until he was there that he got contacted by a Korean company that was like, hey, we saw your mod, and we want to give you like the opportunity to make that like a full game and stuff.
How long ago was this?
When it was created, I guess. I don't know.
No, is it like how long has this game been in development? Like 5 years?
Oh, you're saying like the whole length of this story?
Yeah.
I have no clue actually, but so this, I believe it's called Bluehole, is the company that makes that game. I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. But they were like, hey, we'll take your ideas and we'll see what we can do with it. Albeit unorthodox, like things that he was suggesting, they were like, that's not really how you make games, but he was just like, believe me, just do it, and people find it fun because they found it fun before, and lo and behold, it's a fucking phenomenon and people love it. So
it's great. It's great for two reasons. Like Fortnite is very casual. It's very like, if you die, you die, because people die really fast in that game.
So there's respawns in Fortnite.
No, there's no respawns. But what I mean is like, people just die faster there.
Okay.
So you're back into a game faster, right?
There's no like PUBG where it's like maybe 20 minutes where you're alive and then you finally die.
Yeah, because in that one the map is so expansive. And like collecting resources and getting your shit together with your crew and everything kind of becomes its own. It's almost like the game is in two phases. I've only run into maybe one or two times where the group of us that play, we fly. We call it the LZ because it's where we're all landing.
Landing zone.
And like when we go LZ is hot, we just turn our glider and we fly somewhere else. In PUBG, it's a lot easier to pick somewhere where nobody is because there's so much of it. Fortnite is like LZ is hot and you're just getting shot out of the sky kind of thing, I
see.
So PUBG really is like, has really two big phases, like the gathering phase and then the fighting phase. But you don't die in like the first 10 minutes.
Gotta say, it looks pretty awful on Xbox One though. The frame rate particularly is pretty bad, right?
Okay, I wanted to comment on this because my friend Shannon, who has like he just got like this 1080 Ti special edition Empire like Star Wars themed one like card. I was talking to him while he was streaming, and he's like, and I was like, this game is still running like it's on 10 frames per minute, and he's like,
10 frames per minute.
That's how bad it is.
Quite an exaggeration.
And he says, yeah, it's just not optimized yet. It's like it's getting there.
I mean, yeah, but on computer it runs better.
He's running it on a PC that's like,
but it's better is what I'm saying. Then
the graphics may be better, but it's still chugging along.
Okay, but Xbox is literally like 19 frames for Xbox One X and 16 frames or something like that for Xbox One S, which is ridiculous to me.
Even on the PC, that is
like Nintendo 64. Okay. That is literally Nintendo 64.
I know, but I'm telling you that the PC version still isn't as optimized as you think it is. Like, it's not.
I'm not saying the game is perfect by any means. I'm just saying, like,
you're playing it on a inferior system.
No. I'm saying that, why allow it to be sold at that? Whatever.
They're still patching it and they're still optimizing it, so it's gonna run better eventually. Because again, isn't it still kind of like being built? Like they're still patching it.
It's in beta or alpha, whatever the fuck you want.
Even though there's a release for the game, it's weird, right? And yeah, that's just how it is. Like, Fortnite runs fine because it's all those textures and everything are simplified.
That game's also beta, right?
Yeah, so it's a closed. It's all like all the textures are simplified. They're solid colors because that's how the character design is. So it runs fine. But to be honest, PUBG feels like there's more to it.
Okay.
And there's vehicles in that one. There's levels of backpacks. There's attachments for each gun that you have.
Cool.
Like, and this is all like resources that you get. Like, me personally, going in nude is the best option.
Okay.
Because like getting clothes and all that stuff, it's just like. It just bogs you down.
Just weighs you down.
Exactly.
You're not as frisky.
And like walking around without shoes on, it helps because like if you're walking on like a steel grate or something, your boots make noise.
I see.
And all that stuff. So it's I like both games. Don't get me wrong. But when I want a more intense game, I play PUBG. When I want something kind of fast and fun and kind of just we're only gonna play like 3 or 4 games tonight, just do Fortnite. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I've also been playing a Hat in Time. I was really excited to pick this game up because I spent the last like 2 months spending money on fucking Christmas gifts and I couldn't buy anything for myself, So I finally picked this game up and I love it. I really think it's a great game. The first thing that like caught my attention was I looked at one of the Steam reviews for it, and somebody said this is what Ukulele should have been, and just in my head I was like, fuck, like, all right, I gotta try this game now because if they're saying that about it,
what Ukulele should have been, that's quite a statement.
Yeah, so like if you played Ukulele, you know that a bit of the quests, or not the quests, whatever the fuck you want to call them, like stars, or I forget what you get in those paper. You get paper. In the a bit of those pages were not very exciting. They were very just like, okay, go here, get this, go here, get this. And it felt kind of boring. The maps weren't really filled with a lot of stuff. Some of the bosses were really easy. The game overall just felt kind of like unfinished. This game is completely the opposite. A Hat in Time feels like it has so much, like, I won't say polish, because there's definitely like it's a little bit glitchy in some areas and all that stuff. But it looks like they focused on what mattered most to them. So like the humor, the writing, for instance, I love. It's really like cute humor and like little characters cute. I love the character designs. Another thing too is like just how it plays. I would say like if you're just coming off of Mario Odyssey, you should definitely pick this game up after, because it's just as fun as that game. Like just jumping around and platforming, like it plays like a Mario game.
I have been seeing a lot of fan art where like Mario's Cappy, like he's throwing that to her, because it's like these games are so damn similar. They want crossover.
There's a bit of similarities to them because she uses her hats. She switches her hats to get different powers. But yeah, even down to like some of the visuals in the game. It looks just like Mario Sunshine. If you've played Mario Sunshine before, you know that like when they show a star, it kind of like
widescreens.
These two black bars, like kind of like they come in. Yeah. It does that exact same effect in this game. But I am enjoying it a lot. The music is really good. I think it is a really good game. So I haven't beaten it yet, but I'll come back next week and let you know what the ending is like. But yeah, like I said, man, just so much work put into all this stuff. There's like different music tracks in the levels depending on where you are in the level. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
Remember in Banjo-Kazooie when you were underwater, the music would change?
Yeah, like you were saying, the comparisons between this and Odyssey.
Yeah.
It's like that's kind of how Odyssey is like. When you're walking in, like, for example, in the desert one, if you're walking into the town, the music changes, and then you go to like a different area on top of the pyramid and all that stuff, it changes.
Yeah, the music fades out a little bit and stuff. Yeah, and it's only a $30 game, which I thought was ridiculous. I was like, this game is
How much was Ukulele?
I think it was $40.
Okay.
But last thing I'll say about it is like every star or whatever the fuck you want to call it, like star intro or whatever, it has like a unique illustration. So
really?
Yeah, like a title card to a cartoon or something.
Yeah.
I love that so much. It reminds me of do you remember Punch Out on Wii?
Yes.
One thing I loved about Punch Out on Wii is it had so many illustrations to tell stories of like the boxers before you got into the fight.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, and even remember the what is that called? The title defense.
Yeah.
They had more illustrations, like because Mac ruined their life or something, or like I was
the one that was really good was the one where Mac fights King Hippo the second time.
Yeah.
So he's like, how do I block this? And then you see him look at a
manhole
sewer
cover.
grate.
Yeah.
Yeah, a manhole cover, and then he's like, and he puts it on himself. I was like, oh, that's so cool.
But yeah, very very highly recommend that game. I really enjoyed it. And then I watched a couple of Netflix series too because I was just not doing shit, laying in my bed just being lazy. I ran through a show called Godless, which is about cowboys. I don't know if I talked about this before.
You mentioned it earlier.
I mentioned it, yeah. I finished it and I thought it was pretty solid, especially since it's a self-contained story. It's not going to go anywhere after that, you know.
It's done?
Yeah, yeah. I'm always a fan of shows that just kind of like tell a story and then okay, that's it. I'm done. I can just keep going, you know.
That's why you're a fan of The Office, the European Office or the British Office.
Oh yeah, the British Office is great for other reasons. But
it follows that philosophy. This is the story, and we're done.
I just wanted to mention that one real quick. The real thing I kind of wanted to talk about, I hope you watch this at some point, is this show called The Toys That Made Us on Netflix.
But you finished it?
Yeah, it's only 4 episodes right now. It's supposed to be 8, but it's only 4 right now. But I think it's great, not because of not necessarily because of how it's edited or how it's shown, because I think the intro to the show is really bad. I think like
this is another Defenders.
No, nothing like that. The editing in particular looks like VH1.
So
like
is it a lot of
like
talking heads?
Yeah,
it's just like, man, back in the day.
Exactly, it's exactly like that. Like and like their like name comes in or whatever, and then like
they show old products and blah blah blah.
Right. And then it'll have like some narrator guy with a funny voice, like. So Mattel was in a fucking, whatever. Yeah.
They were in a bind.
Yeah. And they needed some way to get Barbie off, whatever.
That sounds really annoying, dude.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. And you know what sucks is that I've seen the little like key art for it on Netflix, and it looks like a documentary style because it's like it's kind of desaturated and the toys are sitting on a shelf and stuff.
It's definitely not.
That's misrepresentation. I don't like that.
It's not Ken Burns. It's definitely not that. But. The history itself and the stories are fantastic. Like, one of my favorite episodes is the He-Man episode.
Okay.
Just because of, like, how, like, avant-garde, am I using that word right? Like, they just kind of make shit up on the spot. Let me give you an example. There's a at one point, they're trying to come up with He-Man because Star Wars is destroying their lines of everything. That's just decimating the market. Like, everything is selling out, Star Wars wise, and they need something to combat with that. So they're trying to make they eventually come along, oh, He-Man, that word, just like it sounds good, we want He-Man, right? And they go up and they present it to like these officials, and they're just like, okay, but why are kids going to be interested in this? And then just off the top of his head, one of the guys says like, oh, didn't I mention the comics? Yeah, we're going to have little comics inside with the toys to tell the backstory. And he just made that up. And so he's like, so the next week or so we're trying to come up with this bullshit story to come in to just throw into the packages as like, they're just making up these stories. And then later on, when they do another presentation, he's just like, oh yeah, so here's a comic book, and they're asking more still, and he's like, oh, didn't I mention we're gonna have a 2-hour special on TV. 2-hour animation special.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. And so it's great because it's filled with all little stories like that. And yeah, eventually, they tell them, hey, instead of 2 hour special, you could get a whole series for the same price. Why not? And it's funny because there's a part where the guy, he sees 10. He goes, we got 10 minutes of He-Man for you guys to come, watch and demo and see what you think. And he says, as he was watching it on the screen, he was just like, all that bullshit we made up. He's like, somebody created like a cohesive story out of all of this what am I trying to say? Like a melting pot of shit or whatever, that we came up with. He's like, somebody made sense of it all. And they're so amazing. I'm like, man, that's crazy, because it's one of those success stories where, like, everything went right, Like, things went right one after another, and it just so happened that things, happened in the way that they happened. I guess if you dissect history, it always seems like that, but,
I will say that concept, the He-Man, and the Masters of the Universe and blah, 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 seems so far-fetched. Like, if you pitch that today, it'd be like, what the hell? I mean, what is this?
They go into that, too. They were just, like, in the 70s, it was, like, bright, or I'm not 70s, it was the 80s. They were, like, bright colors, fucking crazy-ass figures were the thing. And
but think about all the different toy lines that came out around the same time that were like He-Man.
Right.
Like, you had, just off the top of my head, they had, like, the what do they call the Thundercats? Uh-huh. Kind of the same, kind of big, muscle-bound guys who are fighting other guys. And
it's funny, too, because they say something about, they use the word power. I have the power in He-Man.
Yeah.
Because they notice that kids, when they play with toys, they have kind of like a power, what is that called? They feel like they have power over their toys, because kids don't really have power over much in life. Actually, adults are the ones making their decisions for them, and so that's where the whole power motif came from. And I'm like, wow, it's like when you're making toys, you really break it down to like a psychological level, Well,
think what that reminds me, because remember when Nintendo first came to the U.S., that was their big thing, is like, now you're playing with power.
Right, yeah.
I mean, that was like their big word, I guess, in the 80s and 90s, was like power. Like,
yeah. I mean, if you really think about it, it's true. It's like, that's what kids want. That's because there's, so the 4 episodes are Star Wars, Barbie, He-Man, and G.I. Joe. And in
I would say that, yeah, those were the big 4 toys, because those are, I remember when I was like late 90s, early 2000s, the resurgence of nostalgia came back. That's when all those stupid VHS shows came back. It was like, what was it called? Like, We Are the 60s or whatever, and We Are the 70s. Oh, yeah. What were those called?
The VH1.
Yeah, the VH1 ones. And everybody was talking about, you had to have He-Man. And then all of a sudden, He-Man toys were going up on eBay, and they were selling for like hundreds of dollars.
I wouldn't be surprised if this series started kind of a little spike.
In those sales.
Yeah, because it's definitely an interesting show. Just like I said, the editing is a little bit
now it's
nauseating.
It's called The Toys That Made Us. So they talk about kind of the ramifications of all this stuff now leading to the present day, or is it just like, this is what happened back then?
They have quote unquote experts, and they also have people that worked there originally.
Oh, wow, that's kind of neat.
The stories from the people that actually made the toys are really cool, and they're really interesting. The confessionals or whatever from the testimonials or whatever from the people that just like collect stuff is whatever, it's
that's actually the parts of I forget what that show's called. We'll look it up later, but the VH1s where they were doing the 80s and the 90s, I hated the comedians they had on it. Those were not fun. The documentary style like narrations are what I enjoyed, because people would talk about, I don't know why Steve Urkel was popular, but he became this household name and blah, 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 because they talk about series and TV during that time as well, and they talk about what they think this character gave the people that nobody else had done before.
It's weird, because, like, there always seems to be a case of that somewhere in, like, pop culture, huh? Like, something that people don't really work on tends to be popular, or something that isn't necessarily, like... Okay, I'll give you an example from the show.
Okay.
At one point, they were losing money on G.I. Joe, and they didn't know what to cut back on.
Okay.
And they said, we can't cut back on the, articulation of the joints or the detail on their suits, because that's what makes G.I. Joe G.I. Joe. So they said, well, just paint one all black. And they said, okay, we're going to do that, and we're going to call it Snake Eyes. And it turns out Snake Eyes was the most popular character in the entire series. They said, like, everyone in the show was just like, who's your most popular? Snake Eyes. Who's your most popular? Or who's your favorite? Sorry.
I mean, think about it. It's a badass name.
That's so crazy, though, isn't it? It's just like the one that they weren't even thinking about. The one that was honestly like a cutback. That was the most popular one. It's like, okay, that's just how things are, I guess. Sometimes... What is that called? Lightning in a bottle. You know, it's like
everything just comes together. Yeah. I mean, if you think thinking about it, it's like Snake Eyes is a cool name because kids are gonna remember that. They're gonna say Snake Eyes. It sounds really cool.
Yeah, the name definitely has something to do with it. Of course.
All black, so he's a ninja, and we know that kids love, faceless superheroes, or faceless characters. Because think about things like Master Chief. Mm-hmm. Think about like any World War II video game where you're just nobody, but you're just becoming that character. Kids love that.
You know, it's crazy too. I didn't know Marvel had anything to do with G.I. Joe. I guess they printed the comic books.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that I didn't know.
Yeah, and I guess Marvel gave them some tips because they were publishing it. They were like, we're not gonna just publish trash. Basically, we're gonna give them some tips. And one of
I don't know. Ever read Hero for Hire?
Yeah. One of their big tips was like, you don't have to call the main guy G.I. Joe, because originally the big figures, the big mannequin figures that they had, were called G.I. Joes, right? Mm-hmm. They said, why don't you do like a superhero thing where the squad of people is called G.I. Joe? So the organization is G.I. Joe. You know, who do you call when you need help? G.I. Joe. That refers to everybody. Mm-hmm. This whole, group of people. And then they were just like, also, they need a villain. They're like, because who does he fight? And the people that made the toys were just like, well, they fight their other toys. You know, like, they fight Star Wars or Chewbacca, because those are the bad guys. And so Marvel told them, like, you know what? Just have an organization called Cobra. That was another thing that they just said. Like, out of nowhere, like, Cobra, that's going to be your bad guys. And it's like one of the most, iconic villains now, right? It's like the Cobra organization, like, Cobra people Commander, know that, yeah. People know that.
And again, look at who that guy is. Faceless, nobody. Yeah. He can be anything to anybody. Yeah. Did they actually mention how they came up with the G.I. Joe? Because I've heard that the name stands for General Issue Joe.
Well, that's
like
a real term.
Standard soldier.
That's a real term, right?
I don't know.
It is a real term, first of all. But the guy was watching a movie, and the name of the movie was G.I. Joe. And for some reason in his head he said, it's fate. He was like, I sat here at this time and I saw that. It has to be the name. Like, it was one of those kinds of things. Another reason why I'm like, this series is awesome just because you get to see all of these, you get to hear all of these cool stories that you wouldn't normally, think you would care about, I guess. Mm-hmm. You know? But it turns out they're really interesting, cool stories, and especially those people that worked on the toys. You can tell they love their fucking jobs, dude. I mean, obviously, people are gonna say, oh, they just play with toys all day, but you can tell that they have such a passion for crafting people's childhood. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm running out of breath here because I'm talking a lot. So, but yeah.
Well, it's just interesting because you got that happening, right, for the 80s and 90s, but then I don't know if such a thing exists today. And maybe it's just because I'm out of the loop when it comes to kids' toys and everything. Uh-huh. But I don't see that same phenomenon happening now.
I don't think you will as much, just because...
There's so much.
Okay, let me give you another example. So Barbie, right?
Right.
Barbie was, still around today.
Yeah.
She's big. She's unstoppable.
She's had 52 jobs.
She's had over 150, apparently.
Whoa!
Yeah. Her main competition in the late 90s, early 2000s, was Bratz. And I was like, okay, I remember hearing about Bratz, but I didn't think they were Barbie level. But yeah, so Bratz was a big competitor to Barbie, and they even tried to sue them because they said, the guy that made Bratz used to work for us. Mm-hmm. So if he came up with that idea while he was here, then, we own his ideas or whatever, mm-hmm. legal shit, all that.
Because the reason they did that is because they argued that the knowledge that he gained from his time at Barbie became the baseline for his own
Right,
dolls.
exactly. But yeah, that's... I'm trying to tell you that, like, there might be a toy that's out right now that people love, and we just don't... Like, we just don't notice it because we're not kids anymore, you know?
Well, it's just like... What do I want to say? Like, a couple of years ago, it was Tickle Me Elbow. Like,
That
every
was,
kid
that
had
was
it.
long ago, though, dude.
Yeah, but I feel like...
I think fidget spinners. Those are gonna be in like the remember the 2000s
Fidget
documentary. Those are gonna definitely be in there.
Those were up for a minute and gone, but like
You're gonna see comedians spinning those, and you're gonna be like, "Yo, you remember these? Yo, you remember these things?"
Who are you, Kevin Hart?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know who.
No,
else
I don't know, because like somebody having a G.I. Joe now and seeing reissues of the same toy now, I don't think you'll be seeing reissues of like Shopkins. I don't think you'll see reissues of SpongeBob SquarePants.
No, you're
you know
right.
What I mean,
there's definitely a lot of toys that like. Well, that's what I'm saying too. Is like they make a lot of toys that like a company like let's take Barbie for instance. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of knockoffs and competitors, but there wasn't really one that like was worth their time. Basically, you know,
right?
They weren't going to directly compete with any of these companies because they were just so big,
right? And you know, our friend Kevin, he was saying something about like the Star Wars Kenner dolls, which they go into on that show.
Yeah,
too.
That's the first episode actually.
He talks about how when Star Wars first came up, like he mentioned this to us a while back. He's like, when Star Wars first came up, people never anticipated it was going to be as big as it was.
No, they didn't.
So people threw together what they could to make merchandise for Star Wars. And one thing he complained to us about is like, Star Wars lightsabers.
Right.
It was just a flashlight with some tube on it.
Yeah.
And that was our lightsaber.
Right.
For that season.
Yeah, because... go for it.
What I'm trying to say is that the toys that they came up with, the Kenner ones, look so dumb and they look so bad that it feels like somebody was like, this is what we can make right now for Star Wars. And I think that's the I don't know, the catch, the joke or whatever of collecting these things is because look at
how bad
this was our
look?
childhood and this is how bad they were, but I still have a remembrance for this because this was something that somebody put together to try and appease
high demand.
High demand.
Well,
and this was the first edition because now look at the Star Wars toys. Like, they're ridiculous.
Well, since that is the first episode, and they do go into that because Star Wars apparently they were trying to get a deal with toys before the movie came out, and every company basically turned them down, except for Kenner. Kenner, this little fucking. They didn't even have their own building. I think they were like on the floor of a different. They were on the floor of Kroger or something.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And so they said, fuck yeah, we want it. Like, this is, space, and that sounds cool. Why don't we do it? Because we're just a little company. What do we have to lose?
Right.
And they ended up locking in the license for, what is it, like lifetime rights to Star Wars toys. So they had the license for a really long time. But you're saying they look cheap. It's like, it's a cheap company, dude.
No, I know. Like, I mentioned that when we were kids, we went to, like, Mexico. And we were watching like Dragon Ball Z over there because they ran it all the time there.
Oh yeah.
And then we went to like the little stores and they sold these crappy little Dragon Ball Z toys that were barely recognizable, and all they could do was move their arms up and down, and that was it. Yeah. But we bought them because we were like, dude, it's Dragon Ball Z, and this is all they have.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that they only move like up and down and stuff because I guess the first prototypes that they showed off in a presentation, the Kenner Star Wars toys, were like Playmobil toys that were like molded. They put like molding clay on it, and they just carved it into like a Luke Skywalker or a Princess Leia or a Chewbacca.
Right.
So they basically just like
they just made little prototypes.
Yeah, out of like other toys basically, and even the Jawa, the little those are called Jawas, right?
Yeah,
guys?
The little guys with the yellow eyes,
with the hood.
Yeah.
The guy like used his own sock or something to be the material that wraps around him, like his hood and stuff.
That's so funny.
Yeah, because it's just like they had it done, and they're just like they're like a little fucking company. It's like, what do you want them to do?
That's so funny because it reminds me of like times when when you and me were working at G4 when we were like, we gotta make this work, and so we'd throw together something really quick we'd put something together at the 12th hour and be like, that's what it's going to be. Screw
Yeah.
it, you know? And there were so many times that happened, and those memories are really, like, they're really nice stories.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's what it feels like when people tell me stories like that. He's like, I had a sock and I threw it on there, and that was the Jawa.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's what's great about this. If you're gonna take anything away from this podcast, is that those stories are really what you're there for. The show is like I said, it's the editing is like fucking stupid,
Awful.
Yeah, to me it's just like fucking this narrator is just so like TMZ, like MTV.
I don't like that.
Yeah, it's whatever. But the info is good. You stay for the info. Okay, so we're out of time.
And they're going to make 4 more?
Yeah, they're gonna make 4 more.
Okay, so that's something to look forward to.
Yeah. So, what are your final thoughts, Ernie, on this podcast?
Good start to the year. I think there's definitely more. And you know what? Probably next time they release the other 4, I'll watch it and be caught up, and we can talk about the rest of it.
Well, yeah, I don't know how long it's gonna be till they release them, but do you have any New Year's resolutions or anything like that?
Not really. It's because like my only goal right now is to be a good dad.
Okay.
To my kid, so. I'm gonna keep trying to do that.
That's not a real resolution.
That's a
real
pretty important one, I think. Everybody's trying to lose weight and stuff, and I'm just trying to not screw up my kid.
The gym's gonna be real fun this month.
What about you, man? Final thoughts? Any resolutions for the year?
I think my only resolution is to get to know more artists.
Me, I'm not enough. You know, one.
You
artist.
are one artist, yes, but I like to meet a lot more. I always see these like Oni Plays animators. They're like really talented people. It'd be cool to meet some of them. So I'd like to try and like just reach out to people, see if I can meet more people. Because I mainly just stay in my room and yeah, it's a bit strange. So but yeah, that's this week's episode, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next week.
See you next week, guys.